Blockchain, smart contracts, and cryptocurrency all have the potential to change the world. These technologies have the ability to create trust in traditional trust-free environments. I recently learnt about a new company, a startup company called Intimate, who's using blockchain and cryptocurrency technology as a payment solution and a smart contract solution in the adult industry. I've been very fortunate. I reached out to Leah Callon Bulter from that company, and she's agreed to come on the channel and answer my questions about how this technology can potentially transform the adult industry. Hi everyone. Today I've got a guest, Leah Callon Bulter from a company called Intimate, and what they are is they're a cryptocurrency company that's specialising in the adult industries, and they've found a gap in the payment gateways market that's not currently being serviced. So today we're going to have a conversation about how cryptocurrency, decentralized payment gateways and so on can actually solve some of the issues that exist out there. So first off, I just want to say increasingly we're seeing a lot of censorous activity from large centralized platform organizations such as Facebook, such as Google, YouTube, and we're even seeing it with companies like Airbnb that are very much setting themselves up to be moral arbiters of what can and cannot go on their platform. So my first question to you, Leah, is what role do you see decentralized technologies such as cryptocurrency, blockchain having in restoring liberty to the internet?
Yeah, great question. And I think this is why I first got into this technology, or what interested me in it, for these decentralization properties. It's so fascinating. So I guess where I'd love to start is how I got into this in the first place.
Sure.
It actually wasn't in adult. It was through renewable energy, funnily enough. I've got a background working in that industry, and I left it because I saw that this was a place that was really being centralized by the power companies, essentially. And
Right.
so micro prosumers, people who have solar panels on their roof and they're producing more energy than they can use, they weren't being incentivized by the larger power companies and the government, essentially, to build sustainability and resilience into the network. You know, it was all being controlled by the powers that be, pun fully intended. And I left that industry quite annoyed. But when I came across, there's a project in Brooklyn, New York, called the Brooklyn Microgrid, and it was the first time they ever proved the idea of using blockchain technologies to decentralize an energy market so people could actually sell their excess or surplus solar energy to their neighbors. And I, when I first came across this, it was real a mind blown kind of moment. I was so excited about the potential applications of this and how far reaching it could be. After that, I got excited. I thought, well, okay, if this could apply to energy, where else could it apply? And I saw that it wasn't just around the redistribution of energy within power markets. It was also these ideas around censorship and how centralized bodies actually control the way that communities and economies function and work together. And I looked at lots of different verticals, but to be completely honest with you right now, I mean, blockchain is a bit of a technology crying out for a use case. It's pretty infantile. It's got scalability issues. It's pretty clunky. It's kind of like the first version of the internet. It's going to take a while to get to the Web 2.0 of blockchain.
Yes.
Where we can see things like, Airbnb and Uber actually spring up. So it's got a while to go. And I thought, well, decentralization is a great concept, but where can I find an industry that really needs it, that's really crying out for it, that would be an amazing proof of concept? And that's when I came across adult. And these ideas of censorship, like you said, I mean, Facebook's doing it to people every day in terms of what they can and can't advertise. But it goes much deeper than that in adult, where people who have an idea for a sex tech product, or if they want to set up any kind of business, it's pretty far reaching too. I'm not just talking some hardcore porn or say escort agencies. we work with people who have sex toys that resemble emojis. So they're pretty tame and cute. And even things like, we've worked with female entrepreneurs who have launched things like sexual health and reproductive health apps to improve your life. They get chucked in the sex bucket. And what this means is that when they go out to open a bank account, if they need a payment gateway to be able to run their business online, if they need access to any kind of merchant services, if they want to boost their ads on Facebook, we work with a Japanese love hotel group in Japan that can't advertise their properties on bookings.com. These kind of barriers, they're really widespread. And what I can't stress enough is that all of these businesses are legal. They're completely legal. And I thought, whether you agree with the industry or not, this is actually extortion that is going undetected. And it is it's mainstream and centralized institutions deciding what businesses are moral and which ones aren't. I don't know if you noticed, but Kate Carnell, the Australian Small Business Ombudsman, recently got behind this, and she said herself, it's a bit rich for the banks to decide whose business is moral.
Yes,
which aren't. So this is what we're fighting against. These are people with perfectly legitimate businesses, and they're experiencing all types of bias on completely moral grounds. And we think that that's actually pretty representative of a far-reaching problem in society, but it's probably felt the hardest in the adult industry. So this is something that crypto can do to kind of move that, redistribute that power and influence.
Well, yes, and on that discrimination, I mean, we're seeing a lot of these companies, they're increasingly being run by their public relations departments, and it really doesn't take much of a mob of outraged people who are never going to buy their product or use their service anyway to make a storm, and they will run scared. And this is the problem if everything's through centralized systems. And even though some of the people watching this may, because our audience is both libertarian and conservative, a lot of conservatives will not be particularly friendly towards the adult industry. But I mean, conservatives surely can appreciate the rampant discrimination that we're now starting to see in some of these centralized platforms, where really moderate views such as Ben Shapiro and things like that are just getting completely removed from all of the big free providers.
I completely agree with you. And if I can touch on that, we completely respect everybody's opinion, and I understand that the adult industry is something that a lot of people don't look lightly upon, and I respect that. I think a big problem is that because of these issues that exist, it makes it very difficult for would-be entrepreneurs to come into this space. So the barriers to entry are very, very high, and I think that the ripple effects of that is that we're not seeing enough diversity in this space. So the adult industry is usually seen through one lens point, and a lot of people would think, oh, it's really dirty and sleazy, and I don't like that. But I think there's actually a lot of market segments out there. Sexuality is something that underpins all of our lives in different ways, and we all respond to it and experience it very differently. But what I'm not seeing is a reflection of that in the marketplace. And I really believe that that's because of that stigmatization and marginalization of everything from consumers to business operators to workers, anyone who has anything to do with this industry. It's preventing people to be able to change the conversation and perhaps make it more positive. For us, we actually just see the adult industry as the place that has the biggest pain point for this. But these ideas that we're talking about around, what kind of central institution should have the power to be able to tell us what we can and can't do, how we control our own data, how we maintain our privacy, how we interact with others. I mean, essentially, that's what we're seeing. There are commercial institutions that are telling us how we can and can't live our lives. If we can take this idea of cryptocurrency, challenging that, apply it to the adult industry, which is, I believe, the best place to prove it, I actually think that this will apply to all industries in the future. So it's a wide-reaching concept, but I think, you've got to start somewhere and choose the place that has the biggest pain point to be able to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. So a question I have for you is, why can't people use a normal Bitcoin wallet? So what's unique about Intimate, that's going to make it the industry norm, that make it the PayPal of the adult industry?
Yeah, sure. So Bitcoin, the answer to your question is that you can actually use Bitcoin to purchase any of these services, but you wouldn't, because it would be a bad decision. Reason for that is Bitcoin has some issues with scalability. So for example, if you were going to go and buy a coffee today, it would cost you more in transaction fees to purchase the coffee than the coffee itself would cost. So there's some pretty serious issues with it being a currency. People are seeing it more as a store of value, like a tradable digital asset, as opposed to an actual everyday money. The other thing is that we were talking to an adult platform in the UK that accepts Bitcoin as payment. You can install things like BitPay on your site and accept it. But of their overall revenue, Bitcoin was accounting for a minute level of transactions. So people, firstly, they're not really seeing it as just a currency to use every day. But secondly, Bitcoin is industry-wide. It was just set up as a peer-to-peer currency that was built on a network. It wasn't actually designed to solve a very specific industry problem. And what we saw is that the adult industry is it's pretty unique. It has its own challenges. It's like we spoke before about stigmatization and things like that. But it also has other issues like safety and security. And there's some really interesting things about cryptocurrency that can go well beyond it just being a money. We can actually build in things like a trust and reputation layer. So I'll come back to that in a sec. Firstly, the reason we need a token for the adult industry itself is that rather than just, there's other coins out there. Like, let me rattle off a few. There's Monero, Zcash, Dash. All of these coins, they're what we call privacy coins, and they're kind of designed to help you do a transaction, but you can kind of keep it hidden and be private. We think that that's actually not enough. We think we should take that a step further. Obviously, the adult industry craves privacy. People want to be able to transact privately and anonymously, but where's the incentive to be a good actor on that network? If you can just hide what you're doing all the time, that it probably proliferates shady activity essentially. What we can do is build a trust and reputation layer on the top of this currency, which is tied to what you do. So essentially, let me put this into practice for you. You could have a pseudo anonymous profile. So it's attached to your identity, but you don't have to give away specific details of your identity, like your address or an actual picture of your passport. So you can start transacting on this network, but as you do that, you start to build up a reputation about how you act on that network, just like eBay, essentially. Like an eBay seller with lots of stars can actually use their reputation as something to trade off. What's different is that these ratings and review systems, they work really well for things like, say, eBay or Uber or Airbnb, but they're centralized within one particular product or network. What we're trying to build is a currency that is actually network-wide. So you can start building a reputation across the network, and you have incentives there to actually be a good actor. Just like an Uber driver wants to give you the best experience you've ever had, because that's going to help them keep their job and essentially, be a really great driver that people want to ride with. But rather than it just applying to one thing, it can apply to an entire network. So that's where it gets really exciting for safety, like incentivizing people to be good on network.
I did read in your white paper that you intend to have a bit where people can put their sexual health records in part of their current. So that's quite significant, because every now and then you do read stories of clients getting sexually transmitted diseases from a relationship they've had with a sex worker. So So that smart contract, that element of trust in there, can be a real game changer in that industry, I'd imagine.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think escorts are actually some of the best educated and safest people in terms of practicing safe sex. But I would actually even challenge that and see where we see this applying in the future is not just things like escorting, but online dating.
Mm.
So things like Tinder and Bumble and Grinder, I mean, people more often than not meet each other online rather than, a pickup line in a bar these days.
Yes.
I was just giving a keynote at Pause Fest yesterday, and I asked the audience, I said, how many people here have met someone online and jumped into bed with them with not much more information about them than their name, the sound of their voice, and, perhaps what their face looks like? And that's not really a very safe way to interact. And it's often the same kind of people who might judge the escort industry, but we see these kind of real life interactions that are happening between real people in dating. The same kind of trust and reputation system could back that up. Let me give you an example about how the STI check health record thing could be really interesting. So I saw that there was, I don't know which one it was, but one of the dating apps was offering premium subscriptions to men so that you could show up to more women essentially, and more people would see you, more chances of getting a date. I don't really agree with that. I think that's actually manipulating a market in quite weird ways.
Yeah.
But what about in future, if you could actually upload information of your regular STI checks to your profile, which there's some pretty interesting things around blockchain to make sure that information like this is immutable and unhackable, so you know that you can trust that information. But if you're someone who can prove that you regularly practice safe sex and that you're clean, that could actually make you more attractive to people, and that could make you float to the top of the dating pool. I mean, I think that's a pretty exciting thing that we could actually have an impact on, around helping people have a better, less awkward, more open, more inclusive conversation about safe sex, and how to interact with each other.
Right. That's good. And I also saw that through the smart contracts, there's the ability to give deposits, to have a deposit before before you would engage in service, and there's guarantees for both people there. So it's a bit, there's protection for both people there. So would you like to go into how that aspect of it works?
Yeah, so this is a really amazing thing that you can do with blockchains. That's what we would call escrow. It's probably easiest to explain within the context of seeing an escort. But if someone was to go and see an escort, and perhaps they wanted that extra layer of trust to know that both parties essentially have buy-in to this transaction, what it would mean is that you could both have a certain amount of money that is put up in escrow, and until that transaction has been completed satisfactorily, and everyone's happy and satisfied with the way that things have gone down, not just from the experience itself, but to make sure that money has been paid and the right service has been delivered in the way that it was expected. Until all of that is signed off and both parties agree, that money isn't released. Now, if something happens that one party is upset, they can opt to burn that cash, and all of the kitty, essentially, which is shared, is gone. So it means that we actually create this new paradigm for trust, where we don't actually have to trust, say, a middleman like, I don't know, a bank or an escort agency to actually make sure that our transaction goes well. We can do it peer-to-peer and make sure that we both have our own financial buy-in or incentive to govern the process, essentially. So we can do it between each other rather than having to have interference from any other type of party.
Right. That's interesting. And how easy would it be to sign up to Intimate? So this is my one concern. In other software, I've seen that your biggest competition isn't always your other competitors. It's often, for example, in accounting software, it's often not your competitors. It's often Microsoft Excel. So in your
Just
case,
the change effort. The competitor is the change effort rather than, yeah.
exactly right, exactly right. You've got 24-hour ATM, so I can
Mhm.
see that being a big competitor.
Mhm.
So how easy will it be for a potential client to sign up, and use your service with someone they found on Craigslist or Backpage or someone like that, somewhere
Yeah.
like that?
So Intimate itself doesn't provide any products or services. It is essentially just facilitates payments as well as that trust and reputation feedback and review system. So it's like a network effect. And what you would have is a digital wallet in your phone. Our goal is to make this as seamless as possible. So essentially, you could even just go straight into your phone, put in your credit card details, and you're giving it to like a PayPal, an external platform that you can trust, as opposed to something operating within the industry itself. Then you'd have a little digital wallet with your Intimate tokens in there, and you can essentially go and spend it with whomever you wish. So we're actually going to have platforms transacting with Intimate or accepting Intimate tokens as payment from day one. This is unheard of in this
Yeah.
space. I mean, most people doing token sales, they might, it's not unusual for them to say we won't have a product for 3 years. So that's something quite ambitious for us. The whole payments bundling process, though, and making that experience of being able to pay with crypto, but not having to know anything about how to go and buy a Bitcoin or which exchange is the best, or, how do I get my money out? How do I protect myself against the volatility of the market? It's our goal to actually manage all of that. So people just have a very seamless experience. They just sign on to Intimate, exchange, some money in whichever way they choose for some tokens, and then go spend it. That's another one of the things that we're doing that we believe will be applicable to all industries in the future, because at the moment, I mean, let's be honest, the UX around crypto is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Most people find it extremely difficult to understand, let alone access and use day to day. So that's something quite ambitious, again, that we think we can prove in adult, but then this payments bundling platform could be applicable to everything. In an answer directly to your question, though, about how do we actually get people to use this instead of whatever they're doing now, a big part of it will be education and incentives to drive adoption. So, things like if you were going to buy, I don't know, I'm making this up, so don't hold me to it, but you might say, buy $50 worth of Intimate tokens and we'll give you $100 of value. So firstly, just those incentives to drive people onto the platform and use it for the first time. But what we'd like to do is once they get on there, they have this stellar experience, which is not just, oh, wow, I thought crypto was really hard to use and I didn't understand it. It's not for me, but this was really easy. It's just like anything else I've used before. But also being part of this network that actually is promoting a sex positive and inclusive and safe conversation for people to come in. And that's not necessarily, just some guy who wants to watch porn and not let his wife see that, a dodgy payment has come up on the credit card bill. But it could be women who have grown up in perhaps quite a conservative household, and they want to be able to access information or content or services to be able to explore and understand their own sexual identity or their own sexual health without fear of retribution. So it's really a place where lots of different type of people will want to access lots of different types of products. And we hope that once that they can come on and see that network is very much promoting a positive and safe space, that they'll see that it's okay for them to actually engage with it more.
Okay, well, that's great. That's great. So it sounds like now one last question about, I guess, the technical side. What about the currency fluctuation? Because if I were to buy a coffee with Bitcoin today, I don't know if I'm spending $5 or $100 for that coffee. So
Might be pretty cheap today.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I did read something in the white paper about you managing the speculation risk. So how would all that work?
Yeah, this is quite technical, and it's something that we're working through at the moment. So there's a number of different pieces that come in here. Essentially, in direct response to your question around volatility, that is something really difficult to manage, and there's a lot of people delivering some amazing innovations in this space. The first thing that we do is pretty basic. So we can say, for example, somebody wants to take some money out of their Intimate wallet for whatever reason. Perhaps they've been paid for a service and they want to take it out, or you've just put money on there and you want to get it back out into your local currency. We can peg it to the value of whatever it is that day and ensure that even if it takes a few days for your bank to clear, you get it out at the time, whatever the value was when you pull it out. There's other things that people are doing around the space of what's called stable coins, and that's so that you can actually transact without it being pegged to the volatility of the token. So I won't go into that too much. That's something that we're looking at, but it's a bit of a future concept. The biggest thing for us is that we are blockchain agnostic.
Yes.
So what that means is that we're raising a token. It will start off as an ERC20 token. So that basically just means it's on the Ethereum blockchain platform. It's the most popular for any kind of token sale that's happening today, and it's quite good at the moment for smart contracts. But the reality with blockchain at the moment is that it's such a quickly evolving technology that things are quickly becoming out of date. Certain problems are becoming very apparent. So, for example, with Bitcoin, the scalability issue is such a big thing right now that people can't just transact normally because the transaction fees are so high. So when issues like this come up, say it's scalability, perhaps there's been a hard fork in the network, perhaps there's issues with governance of the foundation, fees are going up, whatever the complexity might be, or volatility's out of control, whatever, we can take our token and move it to a completely new platform. Now, that might be because the platform isn't experiencing such volatility, or maybe it's just the cutting edge of smart contracts innovation. Perhaps we just want to be able to keep up with the best innovation possible that's going to benefit our network. We retain the right to be able to do that. So as an example, we're raising on Ethereum, but within 6 to 9 months, we may move to EOS, which is another brilliant smart contracts platform. Some of the other ones that we're keeping very close eye on are things like Neo and Cardano and Waves. So there's a lot out there. And essentially for us, it's less about which platform we're tied to. It's about what is going to be the best technology to give our token holders the best experience, or essentially like not even having to worry about any of the headaches, all the benefits of crypto without having to manage the complexity yourself.
Right. Well, that's that's fantastic. It sounds like something that's well needed. I've heard libertarians for a long time talk about the potential benefits of cryptocurrency and blockchain, and I've seen very little of it actually materialize in the real world, especially after Silk Road got shut down. So look, thank you very much for your time today. That was really informative, and and best of luck with getting Intimate out there in the marketplace.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd love to keep in touch as we progress. I mean, in crypto time, things are moving so quickly. You know, a week feels like a year in crypto time. It'd be great to check in and let you know how we're going. If anyone wants to reach out, my email is leah@intimate.io. You can also find us on social, on Facebook, we're Intimate Token. I definitely encourage people to reach out if you've got questions about whether it's our blockchain tech or even the industry problems we're solving. I'd be more than happy to have a chat anytime.
Well, that's a wonderful offer. Thank you again for your time. That was great.
Thanks, Justin. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. See you later. Bye.
Bye.